Uh, I, like Tom Eastman wrote on Twitter, I am old enough to remember when the web wasn't just five giant websites filled with screenshots of text from the other four. And we have a lot of different explanations for how the web got so concentrated. One of the big ones is that there's something about network effects combined with machine learning that just hands absolute dominance to these firms, and that also allows them to exercise this outsized role in our discourse by manipulating us. I think the thumbnail version of that is like Google invented a mind control ray to sell you fidget spinners, and then Robert Mercer stole it and made your uncle racist. And I'm really skeptical of this account, not least because when you look closely at how these companies grew, you find that they grew by the tried and true tactics of mediocre sociopathic monopolists since the rail barons. They just bought other companies or crushed their competition using anti-competitive tactics. I mean, Google is a company that has made between 1 and 2.5 products, a search engine that we all love and a pretty good Hotmail clone. And maybe they did Android, maybe the team they bought in wasn't really, it hadn't really made Android yet. But everything else is just a product they bought and then either ran into the ground or managed to make successful. And everything they've done internally has been unsuccessful, except for their own operational technology. And it raises this question: what is it that changed that allowed Google and these other firms to remain dominant while the firms of yesteryear, like HP or Compaq or Dell, went under? And I think the answer is that we just stopped enforcing antitrust law. And so we let these companies grow. And then as they grew, they managed to create barriers to the interoperability that was so key to overturning dominance before. That when you look at how, say, Microsoft grew, they grew by making an operating system that ran on a bunch of different hardware that IBM was not willing to make their own OS for because they were worried about antitrust enforcement. When you look at how Apple saved itself in the Office, they did so by cloning Microsoft's Office formats with the iWork suite. When you look at how Facebook grew in the presence of MySpace, they made a bot that would log into MySpace pretending to be you and get your waiting MySpace messages and put them in your Facebook inbox, so you didn't have to choose between the superior interface of Facebook and the MySpace, which had all your friends held hostage. And in those worlds, those walled gardens become kind of feeding pens for new nimble predators, right? That you have new market entrants that come in and say, oh, look, you've conveniently organized all my customers. I'll just have those then. And the thing that's changed since then is that all of those companies have successfully for new laws and new interpretations of laws and new regulations that make it illegal to do to them what they did to their previous customers. And I think restoring the right of new market entrants to modify existing products and services to serve their customers better is an incomplete but significant part of how we have managed to avoid this network effect lock-in in times gone by. And the way that we get there is by weakening the power of the big companies, not just in tech, but in every industry, so that they have a harder time distorting our policy.
And I know we are going really fast, but I just want you to very quickly catch the audience up for people who are not as familiar with antitrust policy. We had a big House report come out yesterday on antitrust. Any big takeaways from it?
Well, it's a mixed bag. There's some really good stuff. There's like, let's just restore the old rules that we had for antitrust before Robert Bork became Ronald Reagan's court sorcerer and said we couldn't enforce antitrust law anymore unless there was a consumer harm, unless prices were going up. So now they're saying, let's go back to what we used to do before Reagan, right? Where companies that are big and buy other companies are subjected to scrutiny. Companies that are big and merge with their major competitors are blocked. Companies that create vertical monopolies are forced to divest and have what's called structural separation. And then there's some stuff that's going to be way harder to enforce, right? Like, so there's this idea that there should be algorithmic or search neutrality. So Google shouldn't be able to preference its own products over its competitors' products and search results, which sounds really simple until you ask yourself, who determines what a neutral outcome is, right? The idea that Google has built a webcam that they've stuck in Plato's cave that can tell you what the objectively best result is on the top of search results is as wrong as the idea that Google has made a mind control ray. Anyone who ever claimed to be able to algorithmically compute objective truth is a fraud, just like anyone who's ever claimed to be able to change people's minds with machine learning. You know, Rasputin was a fraud, MK Ultra was a fraud, pickup artists are frauds. And the people who claim that they can change our minds with machine learning are also either self-deluded or tricking us.